Welcome to today's market report.
European stock markets traded firmly higher on Tuesday, climbing to record levels as investors digested signs of strong global growth while the region attempts to ramp up its COVID-19 vaccination program. DAX traded 0.9% higher, climbing to an all-time high. CAC 40 rose 0.5% at a 52-week high. FTSE 100 gained 1%, while the broad-based Stoxx 600 gained 0.6%. Also reaching its record high. Germany will have immunized 20% of its population against the novel coronavirus by the beginning of May. The country's health minister Jens Spahn said on Monday, doubling the number of people with the jab in a month after taking 3 months to immunize the first 10%. Germany, the largest country in the European Union, has been forced into a fresh lockdown, like many of its neighbours, to combat a rise in infections. These mobility restrictions in Europe, even with easings in England and Portugal, are set to delay the region's economic recovery, but growth signals are more positive in both the US and China, the two largest economies in the world. Overnight, data showed the recovery in China's services sector picking up speed, prompting China's central bank to ask the nation's major lenders to curtail loan growth for the rest of this year amid bubble risks. This followed Friday's impressive US job report, suggesting that American economic rebound gained momentum. In corporate news, Credit Suisse stock fell 0.1% after heavy losses last week, as the Swiss bank said on Tuesday it was replacing senior managers, halting its share buyback program and slashing its 2020 dividend in the wake of the Archegos and Greensill fiascos. BP stock rose 2.8% after the oil giant said it expects to reach its $35 billion net debt target in the first quarter of 2021, which would allow the group to restart share buybacks. Air France KLM stock fell 1.5% after the European Commission approved a French proposal to recapitalise the virus-hit airline to the tune of $4.7 billion, meaning it will be banned from paying dividends and making share buybacks until the recapitalisation is redeemed. The luxury sector is in the spotlight after Dolce and Gabbana CEO denied that the Italian fashion company was in talks with French group Kering over a possible tie-up. The possibility of mergers within the hard-hit sector remains, although the early reopening of China has lifted names like LVMH and Christian Dior to all-time highs in recent weeks. Oil prices edged higher on Tuesday, pairing some of Monday's hefty losses on the back of last week's meeting of the OPEC+. US crude futures traded 1.8% higher at $59.69 per barrel. Brent contract rose 1.6% to $63.17 per barrel. Both contracts fell more than 4% on Monday. Gold futures rose 0.1% to $1,731.25 per ounce. On the FX front, the GBP-USD pair came under some selling pressure during the early European session and dropped to fresh daily lows around mid-138s in the last hour. The pair failed to capitalise on its early uptick to over 2-week tops. Instead, met with a fresh supply near the 139.20 area and was pressured by a modest pickup in the demand for the US dollar. Investors remained optimistic about the US economic outlook amid the impressive pace of coronavirus vaccinations and Biden's infrastructure spending plan of over $2 trillion. Monday's upbeat US ISM service PMI added to the narrative of a relative faster US economic recovery from the pandemic. This in turn was seen as a key factor that continued underpinning the US dollar. Apart from this, a general softer tone surrounding the US equity futures also benefited the US dollar's relative safe haven status and exerted some downward pressure on the GBP-USD pair. Meanwhile, USD bulls seemed rather unaffected by the ongoing retracement slide in the US Treasury bond yields, instead took cues from rising bets for a sooner-than-expected Fed rate hike. The reflation trade has been fueling expectations for an uptick in US inflation and also raised doubts that Fed will retain ultra-low interest rates for a longer period. The combination of the factors to a larger extent offset the optimism over the highly successful vaccination distribution program and the gradual reopening of the UK economy. Euro-dollar adds to gains recorded at the beginning of the week above the 118 mark, although the upside momentum seems to have met some decent resistance. The dollar index was at 92.8.
This is today's market news. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.